For today's project, we are making this cute little apple decoration. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy it is to make. All right, so the first step in making our apple tabletop decoration is we are going to build our apple. And what I've got here are my cutout pieces for my apple. And you can use the same ones because what I've done is created a PDF and a PNG. And I'll tell you why there's two of them. The PDF will be these with lines around them so that you can cut them out and print them. Use your printer to print out the PDF and then cut the pieces out with scissors. The PNG file, however, is sized. I've got the sizing and all that information will be on the blog post how to do it. You can just import that into your Cricut or your Silhouette or whatever electronic cutting machine you have and cut them with that. I have cut mine today with just plain white cardstock, the same white cardstock I use all the time on the channel to make things. And that's going to make a nice weight apple for our decoration. If you want something a little more sturdy and you're using a Cricut or a Silhouette, that type of the electronic machine, you could cut it out of something heavier, like maybe a heavier weight cardstock, the 140-pound watercolor paper we use sometimes, or even poster board. Anything that can be painted. I do recommend cutting it out of white and painting it rather than cutting out of colored paper because paint is less apt to fade over time, and also that way we can make it look seamless when we're done. So let's start out by gluing these together. For that I have some tacky glue. I'm just going to put a puddle of tacky glue. And this is probably the hardest part for you guys. Okay, I took all the work out of it. So I'm going to take the three, there's 3 apples with stem and leaf. There's 6 without. So what we're going to do is make 3 groups of 3. We're going to take all 3 of the ones that have, make sure I'm staying under camera today. I'm doing my best to stay under camera, but my workspace, in order to get you guys down close, is pretty small. It's a little bigger today than it is some days. And just cover that with glue. Cover this one with glue also. And this is, I looked online for apple-based, apple-themed table decor, and this one is kind of a combination of several that I saw online for real life that people had for sale. And I thought this would be really cute to do in miniature this way. Now I hope you guys like this kind of project because I have several projects done the same way where I'm going to make a pattern on the computer for you that you can use either as a PNG on your cutting machine, or there'll also always be a PDF available to cut out by hand. And we can make some really cool looking decorative items for the dollhouse this way. So I've already got this one and I've got one more already ready to go for you for next month. So hopefully this will go, hopefully you guys will enjoy it. And they're all simple shapes so that you can, if you don't have a cutting machine, you can cut them out by hand. It'll take you a little more time, but it's completely doable. Now, group of 3, and they're always in groups of 3 today. Because I find 3 layers of cardstock work the best in groups for things like this. Now it won't, you do want the glue to be dry all the way, but it won't take long. The glue's going to dry pretty quickly today because there's not a lot of glue. There it is. And I did my best to make this the same on both sides, make it symmetrical. It was, I think I got it fairly symmetrical on that apple shape. All right, that glue needs to dry. When that's dry, I'll come back and we will do some painting. All All right, this glue has dried enough that we can do the first part of our painting. And I've got the same two colors that we've been using on all our apple stuff this month. Folk Art Multi-Surface in bright green, and I've got later we're going to use the Folk Art Apple Red. So we're just going to use the green right now. And I'm making the stem and the leaf both green because I think it's easier on this scale to do that. If you want to do your stem in brown and your leaf in green, go ahead and do that. I just didn't think, especially on the video, that I wanted to try and tackle that. So we're only going to paint a little bit here. We're going to paint, but make sure you get the edges and make sure you get down into the apple. But there's no reason to paint the very much of it. You want the edges there, and turn it over and get both sides of just the stem and the leaf. And just a little bit down into here. That way, when we glue the other part on, the other two pieces on, we will have this part painted, then we can paint the red part and have our apple ready to go. And I'm going to lay this on a toothpick to hold that green paint up, hopefully off of my tray, so it will dry nicely. So I'm going to let that dry all the way before we try to glue the pieces together. So I'll be back when that's dry. All right, now that that green paint has dried, I've got a little more tacky glue here. Line up your outside edges as best you can. And off camera, I'm going to make sure that I've got my edge. I'm going to try anyway to make sure my edges are lined up. And don't worry if you get a little glue on there, the glue will dry clear as long as you're using a clear drying glue. And we are going to coat this in Mod Podge once it is assembled. There. So now that glue needs to dry, and then we can come back and paint our red for our apple. So I'll be back as soon as my glue is dry. All right, the glue's dried pretty well. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of sandpaper, and I'm not going to do a perfect job on this. And when you're doing this at home, you've got more time to do the sanding. But just kind of sand it off and get it a little more even. In fact, I'll probably turn the camera off so I can get it a little more even off camera. But just use a little bit of sandpaper, maybe an emery board, and even out that edge. Correct any gluing mistakes you made. And so I'll do that, and then when I get that done, I'll be right back. All right, I evened it up some. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. It's as perfect as you want it to be. So now I have my red paint, and since I know there's no wet paint on here, and we've got a handy little handle from our leaf and stem there, I'm going to start by kind of painting around. And then I'll paint one flat side. And then I'll let it dry, and I'll come back probably off camera and go ahead and paint the other side and finish up the edges when I get it up closer to my face where I can actually see what I'm doing. And when this is dry, if I decide I need to do a second coat, I will. And when my red paint is completely dry, I'll come back and we'll go to the next step. All right, I've zoomed you in a little bit here. We're going to now work on the base. I've got this dry enough that I can kind of hold it up here, and I like this size. I made this 3/4 of an inch long, and it's a piece of one of those craft sticks from the dollar store. So it's a little bit skinnier than a regular craft stick. And I've got my Liquitex Basics in Burnt Umber. And this is a really thick paint, and it got me thinking it is going to be really cool to do what I'm going to do here. So I've got a brush. And one of you guys suggested using a wet brush for this, and for painting with it, I'm definitely going to do that next time. But this time, I just want to spread some out. And I'm going to probably have this all over my fingers before I'm done. but that's okay. But I want this to dry really well before I go to the next step. So get all edges coated, all sides, all spots. And now take a paper towel and just kind of wipe off the excess. And I might do a second coat, but I think that'll be fine. It makes it look like we've used a wood stain. So I am going to leave these to dry. It's getting kind of late, so I'll probably now let this dry until morning, and then tomorrow we will we'll put this together the rest of the way. So I'll be back when this is all dry. All right, so now that the paint is dry on both pieces, we're going to assemble them. The first thing you need to do is make sure that your apple will sit up straight. If you're off a little bit on your gluing, you maybe didn't get the layers flat. You may have a problem with it. It may want to tip. If it does, mine worked just fine, but if yours isn't, just get a piece of sandpaper or emery board, something like that. Hold it straight up and down, and just give it a couple of swipes on a piece of sandpaper until it stands up. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. I'm going to put the glue off to the side so hopefully I won't stick my hand in it. And I'm just going to dip the bottom of my apple into the glue. So we have a nice bit of glue. And I'm going to eyeball centering this and hopefully get it centered. Off camera, I'll make sure it's straight, and we are going to let that glue dry. When that dries, let's see if I can tip this so you can kind of see it. When that dries, we will come back and put a clear coat on this and we'll be done. So I'll be right back. All right, my glue has dried, so it's time to put a clear finish on. And you guys, if you've watched my channel much, you know this little trick. I've got just a craft stick with some of that blue poster tack stuff on it. I stick this on there nice and firmly. Off camera, I've got my bottle of satin Mod Podge, and since this has all dried for a long time, I know that there's not going to be any contamination, so I'm just going to use it right from the jar, which I never do. I can't say never, I very seldom do it this way. But I am going to give this a nice coat, and I like satin for this because I think it looks more realistic. So now we just need to let this dry, and then we can go ahead and see how it looks. So I'll be right back when this dries. And there we have our Mod Podge is almost all dry. There's still one little spot down there that's not dry, but I need to get the video edited. So I absolutely love how this turned out, and as you saw with my pattern I created, it's really easy to do. Be sure and go to the blog post because there will be a direct link to a file on Google Drive that will give you the PDF and the PNG, so you can use the PDF if you are cutting by hand. The PNG is designed to go into a cutting machine. I'm going to try and put it in a file so you get both at once. So we'll see how that goes. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked it, be sure and hit the like button. Leave me a comment. What kinds of things would you like to see? If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you, hit the subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up my next video, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.